be able to be here and to sign some legislation, and I think it's going to serve this area quite well. And I'm here with somebody that you've seen in these parts in the last couple months, our Division of Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie. We also have the President of the Florida Senate and the Speaker of the Florida House, Kathleen Passidomo and Paul Renner, are with us here today. We've got a number of other legislators, including the Senator from Lee County, John Martin, Representatives Lee, Grant, Persons Malika, Gia Lombardo, Rommel, and Botana. I want to thank them for their hard work. And then we have Congressman Byron Donalds is joining us. And then we have Tammy Drake, who's a bartender from Snug Harbor Restaurant here in Fort Myers Beach. So today, So today they released the economic data for each state. Our unemployment rate dropped yet again, so we're now down to 2.6%, which is far outpacing the nation. And being 1.1% lower than the nation as a whole just continues what we've been able to do over the last few years. It's the 24th month in a row that we've had lower unemployment than the nation as a whole. We have now added private sector jobs for 31 consecutive months. In November alone, we added another 27,000 private sector jobs. And so if you think about jobs are being added, unemployment is declining even when we had a near Category 5 hurricane just a couple months ago. So it shows you that we have a lot of resilience in this economy, and we're doing a lot of things right in the state of Florida. So we did a special session, the legislature did this week. Yesterday, I signed legislation. One of the things I said during the campaign I would do is do whatever we could to provide relief from this inflation that we've seen really as a result of federal government, taxing and spending, borrowing, all the stuff they've done over the last many years. And even though we're getting all these things right in Florida, you know, we're part of this national economy, and we want to be able to do things to help people out with that regard. One of the things we said we were going to do is toll relief for our commuters. So we said that for commuters who, you know, get enough pings for a month to show that you're a commuter, you're going to get a 50% reduction in your tolls. So they will literally rebate your tolls every month. And so if you look at a place like Southwest Florida, these bridges here, they double the toll going one way, but that's going to count. So you're going to go, that'll count as 2 every time you go through. And so if you hit, I think it's 35 total, so if you do 17 in here, then you will qualify and you will get a rebate of 50% of your total bill each and every month. And so we have people that are paying hundreds of dollars a month in tolls throughout the state of Florida. And so they're going to be getting, you're going to have some people that are going to get $1,000, $1,500, maybe even more in terms of toll relief. It's going to be $500 million in relief, and it's starting January 1st. We wanted to get it while people needed it. Normally, you do the legislative session in the spring. Things take effect July of that year. But here, we were saying if we could do it in the special session, then you'll be able to get that on the books for January 1st, and you can start doing the rebates. And so we have it on the books. So we made a promise that we would do that just a couple months ago, and we've already delivered on that promise, and we're happy to do that. We also said that we understood in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, yes, you know, when people really focus on it, like the cone, the storm coming, all that stuff, and it's important, of course. I mean, you saw, you know, we had, I think, 42,000 linemen stationed pre-staged. Florida Division of Emergency Management had supplies pre-staged. We had Coast Guard. We had National Guard, local law enforcement, Fish and Wildlife, the whole shebang. When the storm hit, they effectuated thousands of rescues, particularly on the barrier islands, had the fastest power restoration in the aftermath of a major hurricane on record. And when we had locally in Lee County, where the cooperative was shorthanded, we rerouted utility workers from FP&L, Duke, to Lee County, and they ended up getting those on much quicker than they thought because you had more manpower, and it was very important. And then we understood that we needed the infrastructure to be as strong and as resilient as possible. And we also understood we had communities that relied on things like these bridges. And so we work with Florida Department of Transportation. You know, these are not our roads or bridges from the state, but we went in to help. We got the bridge in Pine Island in 3 days, and then we did the Sanibel from the time they started until they opened it to the public. Took about 2 weeks, and it was basically the 3rd week to the day of the storm, wiping out those 3 sections. And so that was really, really important. If you didn't have that, a lot of people said even now you wouldn't have been connected to the islands with that. And so we didn't want to do that. So we wanted to do, it's made it really, really good to be able to get the utility trucks, everything that needed to get over there, people just being able to get to their property. It's made things a lot better. You know, there's like a Sanibel, you know, you have the debris, you know, they'll pick up the debris, and then like the debris, more people put, because there's a lot. And so there's a lot that needs to be done. But I can only imagine how difficult that would have been if it took 4 to 6 months to be able to get out there on ground transportation. So all those things are very important, but I always said throughout the whole time, you know, these recoveries from major storms are really marathons. There's things that you need in those first 24, 48, 72 hours, then maybe the next weeks, but then you look and there's things that need to get done over a longer period of time. And so one of the things that we did in this special session, the legislature was able to do a really strong hurricane relief package to be able to assist the areas further beyond what we've already done with not only Hurricane Ian, but even Nicole, which was not as significant in terms of strength. But what happened is it hit the east coast of Florida in places that had already been hit by Ian, and so it didn't take much to do some significant damage over there as well. So this disaster relief bill is going to do a number of things. First, I think people remember I came out a couple months ago, suspended the property tax for people whose homes were destroyed. I could not, by my executive power, rebate it. We needed the legislature to come in, and so they have done that. They have provided that permanent property tax relief for residential property that has been rendered uninhabitable due to these hurricanes. And so here in Lee County, you know, you think median property tax, $2,200. You know, this is going to make a big difference for people. You don't want to get hit with a tax bill right after getting hit with a major hurricane. So that is now, will be in the books here in a minute. The bill also appropriates $750 million to support ongoing efforts, including $350 million to support the entire portion of local government's match for FEMA public assistance. So what happens is when you do these things, FEMA they did 100% reimbursement for a certain period of time. Then when you go beyond whatever they're willing to do there, they do 75-25, but this storm reaches a threshold, it'll be 90-10. So what that means is FEMA will reimburse 90%, then the 10% is split between the state government and the local government. So 5% of the cost for the state, 5% for the local government. So what we're doing with the $350 million is basically having the state pay the local government's 5%. So you can worry more about doing things that you have to do. So this will free up local funds to undertake additional recovery and mitigation efforts. And if you look at the $350 million in matching, that basically equates to about $7 billion in total reconstruction and recovery projects that'll be undertaken by local governments. And so that's a huge, huge thing. It's going to make a big difference. And you know, thing is like we have a record surplus. So I'm going to use it to be able to help in these situations. And so I'm not sitting there begging for other people to do our jobs for them. We'll step up and take responsibility to help in any way we can. So that's really a significant support. I don't know that we've ever done anything quite like this in prior hurricanes where the state is really leading. It's usually they beg the federal government to do everything. You know, we haven't just sat back and wait for the federal government. You know, we're very active and we lead on our own, and so we're happy to do that. We also are, the legislature is appropriating $150 million to Florida's Department of Environmental Protection to support local beach renourishment and projects and to support a new hurricane restoration reimbursement grant program, which will assist homeowners with coastal hardening and fortification to protect their property against coastal erosion from both hurricanes. You know, Nicole on the East Coast, places like Daytona Beach Shores and Volusia County got hit by Ian. A lot of the dunes kind of got swept away. Then they get hit by Nicole, and just massive erosions. And so this will allow, you know, seawall, temporary stuff, and then obviously you do the beach renourishment. So it's really, really important because they've lost properties because the coast eroded so much. And so you want to fortify that and then be able to protect the property. So that's going to be a really, really big deal. And I think it'll make difference in those coastal communities. The bill also authorizes the Department of Environmental Protection to waive local match requirements for beaches in these impacted areas. So normally the local has to pony up a certain amount. Here we're going to be able to just do it if it's appropriate. There's also another $100 million appropriated to DEP to repair and reconstruct community stormwater and wastewater infrastructure that was damaged by both Hurricanes Ian and Hurricane Nicole. And I've directed DEP to ensure these funds get out the door very quickly with minimal bureaucracy. And then final $150 million of this package, continue our efforts to support homeowners and renters impacted by the storm through the Hurricane Housing Program and Rental Recovery Loan Program. This will give additional resources to help people as we await efforts from Washington to get on their feet. So we have a number of things that you do with this. One of the things, like we did the program for deductible assistance. I think that money's gone, right? Has it been used?
I believe so, sir.
So they're going to be able to replenish that, you know, because some people have insurance claims, they can't afford the deductible. This could help with that. It's also helping and with other types of affordable housing and property. But one of the issues that we have been dealing with is FEMA does this housing program. Kevin didn't want to necessarily have to wait on that, so we launched our own state program, which is really the first of its kind. And up until this point, Kevin's been waiting for FEMA to waive restrictions on the placement of travel trailers in certain flood zone areas, and that's slowed down the ability to get travel trailers to folks who need it on their own property. And here's the thing. It's one thing. The repairs are going to be done by next hurricane season. It doesn't matter right now to put a trailer in a flood zone given the season that we're in. I understand why you wouldn't do that in August, but we're in a situation now where it's going to help a lot of people to be able to repair their property and to get back on their feet. And so today I'm And so today, I'm directing Kevin Guthrie not to wait on FEMA and to start placing those trailers on properties immediately. So we're happy with the package. I think this is a lot of great stuff. Obviously, as we get into the regular legislative session, we're going to be doing stuff additional if need be. Also took action to stabilize Florida's long, turbulent property insurance market. And part of the problems that we've had in the state of Florida is we have 8% of property insurance claims, but we account for 80% of litigation costs in property insurance. Well, you can think about how that affects you. Are they just going to eat those litigation costs? Of course not. They're going to pass it along in the form of higher premiums. And so this bill reins in the incentive to litigate. You'll have situations where a homeowner will get $20,000 and the lawyer gets $400,000. There's one case where it was $50,000 claim, $1 million for the attorney. Well, there's reason why people have left the state. These companies have left the state. So what we need to do is we need to look to see what other states are doing. We're one of the few states that allowed this to happen in the entire country. So now we're more in line with what the rest of the country is doing. And we have to create an environment where people want to come in and compete for your business. That's the only way you're going to ever have a stable situation. And so I think this if you look at so much of the expenses going to litigation, this is going to make a huge, huge difference to be able to stop a lot of the frivolous litigation, a lot of the scams that happen, and we've had a lot of that in the state for decades. So this is really, really important. I think that we're more a better market for people to look at to come in and offer today as a result of this than we were previously. The bill also enhances our Office of Insurance Regulations' ability to complete market conduct reviews of property insurers following a hurricane to hold insurance companies accountable for abuse of the property appraisal process. It also clamps down on timelines for insurers to get payments out the door and back into the hands of policyholders as they rebuild their lives. Finally, it builds on our May reforms with additional funding to provide temporary reinsurance support to help stabilize the market. And this is something that is a global market. It's been not going in a good direction. What we did in May, I think, prevented a major meltdown. This will, I think, add some more stability, but combined with some of the litigation reforms, probably going to have more access to reinsurance today than we would have 7 or 8 months ago. And again, that's just a company needs that to be able to offer policies. If they can't get it, then they go under or they leave the state. And so I think that this was really, really important to be able to do it. But you got to have a solvent private market. You can't dump everybody on Citizens property insurance. It's not solvent. If you have a major event, they can assess everybody something. Auto insurance policies, Renner insurance policies, you may not have had anything to do with the hurricane, and you get an assessment. So it would be a massive financial liability, and so that's why you got to get a market that's actuarially sound. So I think what they were able to do is big. You know, we may have to come back in March. There may be more to do, and we want to do it. We understand it's a difficult issue. We want to continue working until we get it in as great a shape as possible. So I will be signing that momentarily, and then we already signed the tolls yesterday. So very productive week, and we've got much more to do in the not-too-distant future. So I'm going to let some folks come up. So we're going to hear from Kevin Guthrie, Senator Passidomo, Speaker Renner, and then we're going to hear from Tammy. So, Kevin.
Governor, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you and the citizens of Florida, and I just want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank the Speaker and the President for their leadership as well on these very important issues that have taken place during special session. You know, once again, the state of Florida is just going to get it done. I mean, that's plain and simple. We're just going to get it done. The governor talked to us yesterday and said, hey, look, I want to get these trailers down. I want people to get back on the road to recovery. I said, sir, we can do it. I don't know if we're going to get reimbursed or not. And he says, I don't care. They're going to get it done. So we're going to get it done. In the aftermath of this year's hurricane season, we saw many individuals displaced from their homes due to the damages brought on by the storms. This is why we're spearheading Florida's first ever state-led program. If you're in need of the housing that we're talking about, which is a 6-month non-congregate temporary shelter, also known as a travel trailer, inrecovery.fl.gov. Again, go to inrecovery.fl.gov and please register so that we know that you're in need of assistance. The bills passed during this special session will go even further by providing tax relief to homeowners of destroyed homes, additional housing assistance for displaced Floridians, funding to help local governments apply for and secure FEMA grants, as well as funding to reconstruct impacted beaches and water infrastructure. All of this is due to the leadership that you see directly behind me. Again, Governor, thank you very much for your leadership. Speaker, President, thank you so much for your leadership as well.
Good morning. The governor took all of my remarks, so I'm going to be really brief. And actually, I think you really only wanted to hear from him anyway. But since he gave me a ride here and I get to go home after this, I'll say a few words. You know, when the governor and I walked through these communities, was it 2 months ago, after the storm? You know what the devastation was like, and you have come so far. He made a promise that he would be here every step of the way, and he has made good on that promise. So what I was going to say is talk about the bills that we worked on, but instead of doing that, I just want to mention a few things. This is government at its best. So for the past 2 months, on a daily basis, almost on an hourly basis, my staff worked with the speaker's staff, worked with the governor's staff in concert, seamlessly, to put together something that we knew would help you and all of our fellow citizens. And I am just so proud to stand here with these two gentlemen and my colleagues in the legislature, because, as I said, this is government at its best, and I guarantee you we will do this for the next 2 years. Thank you all very much.
You know, I think people get frustrated looking at the federal government. They're fighting with each other, and they're always talking about problems, but never solving them. In Florida, with our legislature and America's greatest governor, we solve problems. We're a part-time legislature, and literally we just got our committees put together after the election within days before coming in immediately to say we're going to solve these issues and provide immediate relief to people who are struggling after this hurricane. And we made it very clear that while the Weather Channel's gone and some of the national media, the cameras have gone, we will never forget this community. We are with you every step of the way, and we've made a huge down payment to make sure we're taking care of this area. And I want to echo what President Passidomo said, is the relationship here could not be better between the House and the Senate and the governor. There's no petty personalities. There's all that we ask is what can we do to solve problems. And I think the governor's pointed out two recent examples. You know, when the bureaucrats come and say it's going to take 6 months to build this bridge, he says not acceptable, 3 days. Or when FEMA and the federal government says, well, this is the way we do it. No, no, no. We're going to do it the way our citizens need it to be done and get it done. And that's what we've seen. In closing, I want to give a shout out to two of my colleagues who are here today, Chair Tom Leake and Chair Bob Rommel, who's just down the road in Naples, who shepherded through the property insurance bill. And they did a fantastic job, again, just days after we kind of came together, making major reforms that over time will heal this property insurance market. And also want you to know that good is not good enough. We're gonna go to great. And so we also have formed a select committee on hurricane resiliency and recovery, chaired by our Majority Leader, Leader Grant, who is just down the road in Charlotte County. And so we're going to look at all the things we did well, but also what can we do better in the next storm, and also long-term mitigation strategies. I know one of your commissioners is here working on the very same thing. We had some great meetings up in Tallahassee this last week, and we're going to get it done, and we're going to make sure that this community is taken care of throughout the rebuilding period. So it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, and God bless you guys.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, for inviting me to tell my story today. Although I am quite stage fright, I couldn't pass on the opportunity to be a voice for so many families like my own that were affected by Ian. My name is Tammy Drake. My family and I have lived and worked on Fort Myers Beach for 26 years, and I have raised my 2 daughters on this beautiful island. I, like numerous others, lost my home, vehicle, and everything else I owned in Hurricane Ian. My oldest daughter was fortunate enough to be traveling at the time. My youngest daughter and I left the island after the storm with just our dogs and a couple of outfits left to our names. She has since gone to stay in Seattle with her father, where she can receive the structure and stability that she needs to strive. I have been blessed with the best support system that has taken me in and loaned me their vehicle to use while I figure out my next steps. I am fortunate to be back to work at Wahoo Willie's, which has become a sanctuary and a happy place for so many of us. Being able to see everyone's smiling faces at work is something I look forward to every day. I couldn't be more proud of the way our community has pulled together and helped each other through this devastation. I feel honored to live among such incredible people. FEMA, Red Cross, and many others have been a godsend to us. But as they start to move on, I was concerned that we would be forgotten when we still need so much help to get back on our feet. Thank you to Governor DeSantis and the legislature for this disaster relief bill. It will take a huge weight off of our shoulders financially and also helps us to know that we aren't alone in this. Fort Myers Beach strong. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here we go. All right,
Come on, Paul,
so-
we gotta watch the,
Today, the 16th? Yes. December 16th? All right, so.
it's good to have a long name.
16th. This will be the last, these are the last legislative acts of the calendar year, I guess, right? Yeah. We can only hope.
Oh, I have a surprise for you guys. We talked about it in the car.
Away. All right, so, who wants a pen? Rommel wants one. Anything else?
Thank you.
Mine too. Yeah, always give mine to this.
Anybody else?
I like to give them to our,
Huh? Okay. Anybody
give
else?
them to our,
Anyone else?
Fort Myers Beach, Mayor Fort Myers
Where?
Beach.
Mayor
Dan Alexander.
Here.
Where?
And also, just what the legislature did is great for the disaster relief. We've also, I think, through the First Lady's efforts, I think they've raised over $60 million for the Florida Disaster Fund. So that's great. You know, we did millions of dollars to help first responders, teachers, a bunch of stuff. Now there's been massive amounts of money to help these organizations that'll assist with repairing property and homes and all those things. And we've done stuff on the state to get the supplies in quick. But then these groups are going to be out doing stuff, and it's a lot of money to have obligated, you know, so quickly. But more has come in, and so there'll be more to do. So we look forward to being able to help some folks with that. But I think what's already been done is really unprecedented in terms of Florida history to have that type of support so quickly. So everyone that was involved in that, we thank you a lot. All right, you guys have questions? Yes, sir.
So a lot of the critics want to talk about how the property insurance bill isn't going to do enough, but I kind of want to hear your perspective on why it's important to balance conservative governance while also trying to help the market.
Well, look, I mean, this is an issue that has been roiling the state for decades. I think you had a situation where the hope was when the big insurers kind of left, was that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, these smaller companies, you know, the hope was that they would do well. Irma came and the claims just kept happening, a lot of litigation, and so you had really significant turmoil that developed, not in the immediate aftermath of Irma, but 2-3 years down the line. And so it's been challenging, you know, with that situation. What is the root cause of that? And I think most people that look at it honestly will say, you know, that Florida's burdens of litigation and the attorneys making so much money is different than what most other states are doing, and it caused massive amounts of increases in the pressure and the cost of this. So this bill does address that. It puts it in a, I think, more sustainable posture, because at the end of the day, and there's consumer protections, there's a bunch of stuff in there, but really at the end of the day, the best thing for a consumer is that if you can go out and make people compete for your business, if they have to do that, then they're going to give you better customer service. They're going to give you better rates. They're going to do all that. And I think because so many companies have kind of been pushed out of Florida over the last generation, you're basically stuck with maybe one option. Well, then they have no incentive to offer you competitive rates and no incentive to even do a good job on the customer service. And so between what they've done on the legislative reforms and then what we've done to provide the reinsurance stuff, that's a much different situation than we were looking at previously. And so I think it's been huge. There's going to be more to do along the way, but I can tell you if a company is going to be more interested in going to Florida today than they would have been 4 or 5 years ago. That's just the reality based on what we've been able to do. And then once you get that, and there's more predictability in the market, there's more stability. I mean, I think Floridians understand, if you live on the coast in Florida, your risk is going to be a little bit different than it may be in some other parts of the country. I think people understand that, and I don't think they are demanding or think it's realistic that their rates are going to be lower than some place that doesn't have perils. I think the issue with us is just the turmoil that you've seen. Companies will go out, they'll leave the state, they'll go out of business. Rates will all of a sudden spike even more and all that, and it's just been bad feedback. So this is bringing stability to it. We'll be back in regular session and see, because what's happening is you're going to have all these reinsurers are going to be making these decisions now about how much capital to put in different parts of the world, but in the country. And I can tell you, had the legislature not done this, the chance of them not wanting to come to Florida at all was much higher than having done this. And so I think we'll see how that plays out over the next few months, and then we'll have time to be able to do more going forward. But just understand, Florida's property insurance market was very good for lawyers, very good. It's made a lot of people very, very rich. But the question is that in your best interest to have a situation like that? And I don't think it is. Yes. So the insurance commissioner has been there a long time, is moving on. So that position is open, and that's being advertised. And so I would tell talented people that want to get in and be challenged that this would be a great opportunity for you. I mean, because this is obviously a very critical issue for the state. There's more attention from the legislature than probably any time in the last 10, 15 years on this. So it's an opportunity, I think, to do well. So we welcome any talented folks to throw their hat in the ring, and if we get some good applications very quickly, we would like to move and get somebody in place. I've been going through since the election. It's been, a lot of it is more just in the office. I'm not actually, out kind of broadcasting everything. But, we are still doing a transition in my administration. Yeah, it's the same, we got reelected, so we continue on. It's different than 4 years ago. We were coming in fresh, but you still got to look at every agency. There's some folks that from the beginning told me, I'm only going to do 4 years, and so we knew that. So we've been able to keep on a lot of good people. We're keeping Kevin Guthrie on, who's done a great job, so we want to continue that. We're keeping people on like our Surgeon General, Joe Latipo, is staying on. There's going to be some others. Insurance is one, and that's a cabinet, so it's not just the executive. So that's one. ACA, Agency for Healthcare Administration. We're going to be looking for candidates for that one. Of course, Dane Eagle from down here in Southwest Florida is moving on as the Secretary of the Department of Economic Opportunity. We anticipated that. This kind of end of the year, it's kind of a deadline for people in some of these positions because there's different things that are changing with the law and what you can do in the future. So we knew that would potentially be a pressure point. So we're going to be looking to do some stuff there. But fortunately, DEM, health, we're going to continue our DCF secretary's done a great job. We're going to continue to do corrections. Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So we've got a lot of continuity, but then we'll also be making some changes for folks who are, basically just moving on to the next challenge and kind of the normal course of events. But I can tell you this, when you have momentum and you're going in a good direction, it's a lot easier to kind of keep that going than when you're starting from scratch. And we started from scratch 4 years ago, had to create an administration, and we've been able to, I think, attract a lot of really, really good people. And people who, when you're in these positions, these are folks that are really dedicated to the cause. And it's important because, you can have great policy, can have a great vision, but you got to have people there that believe in it and are going to implement it and not try to undermine it or undercut it. And so we've had great buy-in, and we've had a lot of people that have really put the mission first. And I think that's part of the reason, we've been so successful. I mean, I can sit here and do the press conferences, and I'll get more cameras than some of the other people who work in state government. But, if I had to build the bridge by myself without having people who were willing to get in there and heed our directives and really work hard to implement our vision, it wouldn't have happened as quickly as that. So all that's very, very important, and I think we've created a very positive culture of a can-do spirit and just get things done.
In case the people in this room didn't see your guys' press conference yesterday, I think they all want to hear your guys' thoughts, Speaker Renner, about constitutional parity in the future of that potential law.
So I've never been asked that before. So basically, this was something that I've always supported. The last 2 years, it was not necessarily a priority for the legislative leadership, but we've been talking about it, and he's pledged publicly that's moving forward, and it'll be something that will be done in the regular session. And that puts us in line now with the majority of states who have done that, and even states like Vermont and New Hampshire have been able to do that. So we'll get that done. So it's not a question about helping the insurance company. What it's about is creating a market where people are going to want to do business in Florida at all. And we're in a situation where we've seen companies leave Florida. We've seen them limit their exposure to Florida. So it's not about, hey, we want to help this company, that company. It's we want to have a market that people think is viable and that believe it's worth coming in and offering our citizens policies. And so we're now more attractive for people being able to offer policies. And so the question is, how does that help the consumer? Well, if we do get more people to come and offer policies, you are finally going to have, potentially, choices. And that will allow you, I think, to make the best decisions for you. Right now, you pretty much, maybe have one or two. Some people just get dumped on citizens. That ultimately is not good for the consumer. And I can tell you, it will be terrible for the consumer if you don't start getting more people into private policies and there's a major event. See, this area, Southwest Florida, is not as heavy with citizens as some other parts of the state. But if you had a major event and citizens went belly up, you could end up seeing assessments and a lot, and it would be really, really problematic. And so let's be a place that people want to do business. We want people to be able to offer policies here. We want a very transparent system. We've imposed obligations on the insurers in this bill, transparency obligations, quicker response time to acknowledge claims, things that I do think are very meaningful for consumers. But we've also said we're going to have a coherent market. We're not going to get ground into frivolous litigation. We want people to have claims, to be able to present those, get them processed, and get them paid, and that's how we're focusing on that. And so I think most people who look at that are going to say Florida's moved in the right direction, and I hope that we'll see more companies want to come in here and do business. So, okay, thanks everybody. God bless. Where am I going?